Hey, it's Jess, and in this video I'm going to show you how to add top stitching to the basic t-shirt that we created. I have layered the t-shirt over a pair of leggings. So under the object browser you can select the top stitching function, and there's always a default top stitch. So you can update the settings under the default top stitch, or you can pull in ISO stitch types from the library. That's what I did for the legging that I pulled in, and those stitches came with. For the t-shirt, I'm going to pull in a couple more ISO codes. So if I go to library and I go to hardware and trims, top stitch, there are ISO codes in here. So I want this 406 2-needle bottom cover stitch, and I'm going to right click that and add it to the workspace. This is pretty common for t-shirt hems, so I'm going to use that at the sleeve opening and the sweep opening. I also want probably a single needle chain stitch for the neckline. I'm choosing 401 chain stitch because it has stretch. The 301 lock stitch is for wovens, does not have stretch. So I'll choose 401, right click, add to workspace, and again the information box comes up that says the file has been added to the object browser. Just click OK, and I'll click this little arrow to make my library small again. Now if I go to the ISO 406 2-needle bottom cover stitch, you can see the type is object. This is really going to slow your system down, so for now we can update it to texture until we are ready to render. And I'll do that for the 401 chain stitch as well. OBJ is going to look a lot nicer in the end, but when you're applying the stitch and if you're still working on the garment, you really want that to be texture so that your system doesn't get slowed down. So for the 406, that's going to be for the hems. And the unit right now is text. I'll update that to millimeters. And for the offset, I want my hem height to be 1/2 inch. So I'm going to scroll down until I find offset. It's actually right up at the top. And update that to be 1/2 inch. And for the 401 chain stitch, the default of a 1/16 of an inch is fine. Next, I'll update the color. I'm going to choose this like dusty rose color to match the garment. You could do a pop color if you want. But typically thread is DTM, dyed to match. And in my 2D window, I'm going to update the fabric texture to be monochrome, so it'll be easier to see the top stitching. And then over here we have top stitching tools. So you have edit top stitch and segment top stitch. Under segment top stitch, you'll find the drop down for free top stitch and seamline top stitch. I'm going to select free top stitch. Make sure you don't select the puckering tools just below. So now using the free top stitch, I'll make sure that I have my 401 chain stitch selected, and I'm just going to click the neckline. From the shoulder to the center front, and because I have linked editing on, it will continue to the other side. Now I'll do my back neckline, shoulder to the center back, and my linked editing continues it to the other side. If I zoom in the 3D window, I'll see that that top stitch has been applied. I'm going to update my thread thickness unit to millimeter and then maybe 0.5, and that's a little bit more visible. I'll simulate. You can also turn on quality render, and that'll be a little bit more realistic, although it does slow down your system depending on what type of computer you have. So For now, I'm just going to turn that off. And I'm just going to check that it was applied all the way around the neckline where I want it. The other place we usually add top stitch is for the hems. So I'm going to do the sweep hem, and that is our 406 2-needle bottom cover stitch. And for this, I can do segment top stitch. And I'll go to the front sweep, click once, it continues to the other side, and that has been applied to the entire front sweep. Now if I go to the back in 3D and the back in 2D, just use the segment sewing tool, click once on that sweep, and it will apply to both sides because of the linked editing, and you can see it has been applied in the 3D window. I'm going to zoom in, and under the top stitching object browser, click 406, and I'm going to update my thread thickness to 0.5 millimeter for this as well, just to make it a little bit more visible, and then simulate. So just like the sleeve opening, we need to add top stitch at the sleeve opening. So I'll go to my sleeve and segment top stitch, and I'll just click once on the sleeve opening. You can see it in the 2D window, and you can see it in the 3D window. Looks good. And because of the linked editing, it was already applied to the other sleeve on the opposite side. So linked editing is definitely a huge time saver. I'm also going to add top stitch to the shoulder seam. There are some options here depending on the styling that you want. You could do a straddle seam. So for the 2-needle bottom cover stitch, you could select seam line top stitch, and along any seam you can apply the top stitching, and it will show on both sides. Since my offset is 1/2 inch, it's showing up 1/2 inch away. Looks kind of cool, but it's not really what I want for this. So I'll go to my edit sewing tool and just click that and delete it. And instead I'll just do a simple 401 single needle chain stitch. And I'll just do free top stitch. I want it to show up on the back of the shoulder seam, so I'm going to go to the back panel and apply it there. Alright, looks good, and that's how you apply top stitching.